The Galactic Federation had rules for war. Rules of engagement, rules of honor, rules of sanity. Then they met humanity and realized we don't play by rules, we play by flow. This is the story of how one human soldier held the line at Kesselline for 72 hours. How 12 alien species learned to fear the word unstoppable, and how the universe discovered we weren't just fighting, we were dancing. The Galactic Federation had classified Kesselline as an impregnable fortress. Its neutronium-reinforced walls could withstand direct hits from plasma artillery. Its defense grid, designed by the Vulpine Mathematician Guild, provided overlapping fields of fire with 0 blind spots. The garrison consisted of 2,000 Vulpine shock troopers, a species biologically engineered for war, with reflexes 30% faster than baseline humans and pain receptors that could be voluntarily disabled. None of this mattered when the Zalathi hive arrived. The first warning came when the long-range sensors detected anomalous energy signatures approaching at speeds that defied known propulsion physics. The second warning was the simultaneous failure of all exterior surveillance drones. The third and final warning was the eastern wall dissolving into corrosive mist as the first wave of Zalathi warriors poured through the breach. Corporal Jax Rivera of the Terran Expeditionary Force was stationed in Sector Gamma when the attack began. He had been assigned to Kessel 9 as part of the Cultural Exchange Program, the Federation's polite term for keeping humans under observation. His squad consisted of 12 Vulpine soldiers who tolerated his presence with cold professionalism. When the alarms sounded, they didn't wait for orders. They simply grabbed their weapons and moved to predetermined, defensive positions with the eerie synchronization of a hive mind. Jax followed, his standard-issue pulse rifle feeling absurdly inadequate against what was coming. The Vulpine moved with precision, their lean bodies coiled springs of lethal potential. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Every contingency had been drilled into them since birth. Then the Zalathi arrived, and all their training meant nothing. The first wave hit Barricade Delta like a living tsunami. Jax caught glimpses of chitinous limbs moving too fast to track, of barbed tails lashing through the air with hypersonic cracks. The Vulpine fired with perfect accuracy, their plasma rounds finding weak points in the Zalathi anatomy that human eyes couldn't even perceive. It didn't matter. For every Zalathi that fell, 3 more took its place, their bodies adapting to the weapons being used against them in real time. Jax saw Sergeant Vectal lose her right arm to a bioacid spray. She didn't scream. She simply switched her weapon to her left hand and kept firing until a barbed tail took her head off at the shoulders. Private Ricks managed to detonate a thermal charge in the midst of the advancing horde, vaporizing dozens of the creatures. They simply parted around the explosion like water flowing around a stone, their movements never faltering. Within minutes, Jax found himself back-to-back with the last 2 surviving members of his squad, their defensive perimeter shrinking by the second. His pulse rifle was down to its last energy cell. His body ached from a dozen minor wounds he couldn't remember receiving. The air stank of ozone and spilled entrails. That's when it happened. Later, he would describe it as stepping through a door he hadn't known was there. One moment he was Jax Rivera, terrified human soldier about to die on an alien world. The next he was something else entirely, time-dilated. The chaotic battle noise faded into a distant hum. His vision sharpened until he could see the individual stress fractures in the Zalathi's chitinous plating. His body moved without conscious thought, every motion perfectly efficient. He didn't fight the Zalathi. He flowed between them, his pulse rifle firing rounds that somehow always found the microscopic gaps in their armor. His combat knife traced lethal arcs through the air, severing neural connections no Vulpine biologist had ever documented. When the surviving Zalathi finally retreated, the first recorded instance of the hive breaking off an attack, Jax stood alone amidst a charnel house of chitin and cooling flesh. His uniform was in tatters. His weapons were ruined. But his breathing was steady, his heart rate barely elevated. The Vulpine reinforcements found him like that, calmly sorting through the corpses for salvageable ammunition. When their medic tried to examine him, Jock simply held up a hand. "I'm fine," he said, his voice eerily calm. "But you might want to check the eastern wall. They'll be back in approximately 6 hours." The medic stared at him. "How could you possibly know that?" Jocks tapped his temple. "I can hear them thinking." Dr. Telvan of the Vulpine Science Directorate had performed over 3,000 battlefield autopsies in his career. None had prepared him for Corporal Jacques Rivera. The human's physical injuries were extensive but unremarkable: lacerations, contusions, minor burns. It was the neurological scans that defied explanation. The medics had sedated Jocks after his combat high wore off, and he collapsed into a near catatonic state. Now, as Telvan studied the holographic brain maps floating above the examination table, he found himself questioning everything he knew about neurobiology. "These synaptic patterns are impossible," he muttered to his assistant. During the event, his prefrontal cortex essentially shut down while his limbic system went into overdrive. But instead of descending into animalistic rage, he achieved this. He gestured at the combat footage playing on a side monitor, Jacks moving with inhuman precision through the Zalathi horde. The assistant, a young Vulpine named Kev, frowned. It's almost like his brain rewired itself in real time. But that would require a complete bypass of normal evolutionary constraints, Telvan finished. Exactly. They ran more tests. The results grew more disturbing with each passing hour. Jax's muscle fibers showed microtears consistent with extreme exertion, but no lactic acid buildup. His adrenal system had been active for nearly 72 continuous hours without the expected crash. Most baffling of all were the telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of his chromosomes. Instead of shortening under stress, they had lengthened. "It's as if his body temporarily forgot how to be human," Kev observed. Telvan didn't respond. He was too busy staring at the latest scan results. Deep in Jax's brainstem, where no human neural activity should be detectable, pulsed a faint but unmistakable energy signature, one that matched precursor artifacts. While Dr. Telvan wrestled with his impossible discovery, another mystery was unfolding on the resort world of New Vienna. Lena Chun, a 17-year-old Terran violin prodigy, had been performing at the Galactic Music Festival when something extraordinary happened. Witnesses would later describe how, 14 minutes into her rendition of the notoriously difficult Precursor Sonata 9, her playing underwent a radical transformation. Her bow hand became a blur. The notes she produced shouldn't have been possible on a Terran violin, harmonics that required precise pressures beyond human finger strength, intervals that defied conventional music theory. The Vulpine members of the audience, with their sensitive hearing, were the first to react. Some clutched their heads in pain. Others collapsed into seizure-like trances. Maestro Helvan, the festival's Vulpine director, actually chewed through his own tongue in a desperate attempt to make the sounds stop. When security finally restrained Lena, she displayed the same eerie calm Jocks had exhibited. Her pupils were dilated black. Her vital signs were paradoxically stable. And when asked how she'd achieved such impossible feats, she simply said, "I stopped thinking and let the music play itself." Medical scans revealed her brain activity matched Jax's exactly. Across Federation space, similar reports began trickling in. A Terran engineer on Minerva Station repaired a damaged warp core with nothing but scrap metal and instinct. A Terran surgeon on Orion Prime performed a 17-hour operation with superhuman precision. A Terran artist on New Terra painted an entire cathedral ceiling in a single night, creating perspectives that shouldn't have been possible without advanced computational aids. The common thread? Each subject entered what humans called flow state and emerged changed. Dr. Telvan presented his findings to the Federation Science Council. "It's not a skill," he explained. "It's a biological override. When these humans enter this state, they're not just accessing hidden potential. They're temporarily rewriting their own genetic code. The council president, an ancient vulpine named Solvin, studied the data with growing horror. You're describing a species-wide latent capability to transcend evolutionary constraints at will. Do you comprehend the implications? Telvin nodded grimly. I do. The precursors didn't just study humanity, they designed them. The artifact had lain buried beneath Mons Olympus for nearly 1 million years. Classified as a precursor geological survey marker, it had been deemed inert and left undisturbed. Until maintenance tech Alicia Ramirez slipped into flow state while repairing a malfunctioning drill. The moment her brainwaves shifted to that unique pattern, the rock reacted. Its surface rippled like liquid metal, unfolding into a perfect dodecahedron that hovered 0.5 meter above the Martian soil. From its center emerged a holographic interface displaying symbols no living being could read, except Alicia. Without thinking, she reached out and touched the symbols in a specific sequence. The dodecahedron responded by projecting a star map of the local galactic cluster, with Earth pulsing at its center. A voice echoed in Alicia's mind, speaking a language that hadn't been heard in millennia. Flow state subjects confirmed. Final evolutionary test complete. Prepare for harvest. When Alicia came back to herself hours later, she was kneeling in the red dust, her nose bleeding, the artifact once again dormant. But the star map was burned into her memory, and the message was clear. Humanity wasn't the experiment. They were the custodians. The Galactic Senate's emergency session lasted 14 hours. The evidence was undeniable. Human flow state activated precursor technology. The implications were terrifying. We must impose immediate restrictions, argued Senator Vector of the Vulpine delegation. If humanity can unconsciously access precursor systems, they represent an existential threat to galactic stability. The Terran ambassador, Elias Vance, countered with cold fury. You're proposing to imprison an entire species for what? For being what evolution or something else made us. The vote was 347-1 in favor of the Vulpine proposal. Flow state was classified as a dangerous neurological disorder. Neural inhibitors became mandatory at all spaceports. Flow-positive individuals were to be detained for public safety. The Federation had made its decision. Humanity would make theirs. The Zolothi Hive's second attack came 6 months later. This time, they came with precursor warships. As the first wave struck Federation outposts across the Orion Arm, something unprecedented happened. Every human in populated space, whether artist or soldier, child or elder, experienced the same vivid dream. A star map, a warning, and a single, inescapable command. Remember. On 100 worlds simultaneously, human eyes dilated black. The harvest was coming. And humanity would be ready.